All right, strap in, everybody. Today, we are going deep on something both fascinating and unsettling, I guess you could say, the Nazis and the occult.
Oh, yeah. A classic.
We are working with Nazis and the occult.txt, it's a transcript from a YouTube video essay,
Interesting.
which is neat because we kind of get to see how people are already thinking about this connection.
Right. It's one of those topics that attracts a lot of speculation. So it's important to be discerning.
Yeah.
To try and separate, genuine historical threads from all the noise.
For sure, yeah. So was the Nazi fascination with the occult just a weird little historical footnote?
Right.
Or did it actually, shape their actions? Did it help them come to power?
Yeah, I think to understand that, we really need to understand the scene culturally in Germany in the late 1800s and early 1900s.
Okay.
So picture this, like upheaval. So like Christianity was being challenged by modernization and science.
So a bit of a spiritual crisis.
Yeah, exactly. People were looking for meaning elsewhere.
Okay, so if the old answers aren't working, what else is out there?
Exactly, yeah. Enter Helena Blavatsky and the Theosophical Society.
Okay.
So she claimed to have learned occult secrets from Tibetan masters.
Whoa, Tibetan masters. I'm already picturing some secret mountaintop monastery.
Right, exactly.
So what are these occult secrets?
Well, things like astral projection, psychic abilities, that kind of thing. She basically promoted this idea that there's this hidden spiritual wisdom, and you can access it through these practices.
Okay.
And that really resonated with people who were looking for an alternative to traditional religion.
Right, so the Theosophical Society became kind of like a melting pot for all these new spiritual ideas.
Yeah, exactly. It drew from Eastern religions, Western esoteric traditions,
Yeah.
even Jewish Kabbalah. It was like a breeding ground for occult and mystical thought.
Wow. And attracting, the people who felt like traditional religion had failed them.
Totally.
And this is all happening while Germany's still reeling from World War I.
Yeah.
They're searching for a way to reclaim their former glory, I guess.
Exactly, yeah.
So that just seems like the perfect recipe for radical ideas to take hold.
Totally, yeah. When you have a vulnerable population, they're more likely to cling to anything that promises power or a return to greatness.
Right.
And in this context, we meet a young Adolf Hitler. Our source points to this account from Joseph Greiner, who claimed he lived with Hitler at a homeless shelter in Vienna.
Okay, so this guy Greiner is saying he was buddies with Hitler back in the day.
That's what he's saying.
What's his story?
Well, Greiner claimed he introduced Hitler to magical practices,
Okay.
and specifically the idea of mind control.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Mind control. That's jumping straight into the deep end of the occult pool.
Right.
Yeah.
But according to Greiner, Hitler was absolutely enthralled by this idea, like being able to control people and events through these means. And if you look at it later on, Hitler's interest in hypnotism, numerology, astrology, graphology, all these things, suggests that maybe that fascination never really went away.
It's almost like he was always searching for a way to influence, and manipulate, even on a grand scale.
Yeah, exactly.
So the source also mentions that Hitler owned this book called Magic.
Oh, okay.
And certain passages were underlined, including Satan is the fertilizing, destroying, constructing warrior.
That's an interesting passage to underline.
Right. What else did he mark?
Well, another underlined passage said, "He who does not carry demonic seeds within him will never give birth to a new world."
Whoa, okay. Those are some pretty loaded phrases. I mean, we can't jump to conclusions about, satanic rituals or anything like that.
Right.
But it definitely makes you wonder about, his state of mind,
For sure. It's certainly fueled speculation. Now, our source introduces another figure who is kind of mixing Christianity and racial ideas, Adolf Lanz.
Okay.
He founded a racially focused group called the Order of the New Templars.
Hold on. So he's founding a whole new order based on race.
Yeah.
Okay. What were his beliefs?
So Lanz was a former Catholic monk, and he believed that the church had suppressed the true teachings of Christianity. He claimed that the core of Christianity was, get this, a racial struggle.
Yeah.
And that justified a crusade against, quote, lower races.
So he basically created his own twisted version of Christianity to fit his prejudices.
Yeah, essentially. He had, very strict rules for his order. It included specific physical attributes, blonde hair, blue eyes, a whole list of what he considered Aryan features.
Okay, hold on. This is all sounding really familiar. Blonde hair, blue eyes, specific physical features. That's basically the Nazi playbook.
And the similarities don't stop there. The Order of the New Templars flag. It had a golden background and a red swastika.
Yeah.
just like the Nazi flag.
No, wait, okay, the visual parallels are hard to ignore. So what else was in Lance's playbook?
Well, he wrote these books advocating for the sterilization of the sick and, quote, lower races,
Wow.
and twisted biblical interpretations to fit his ideology. He even forbade members of his order from marrying outside this Aryan race.
That level of control over people's lives is just unsettling.
Totally.
And here's where it gets ironic. Lan's own mother was believed to be Jewish. Wait, are you serious? That's like a major plot twist.
I know. This guy's out here preaching racial purity, and he might not have even met his own standards.
Right. So hypocritical.
Right. It really highlights the absurdity of these racial ideologies.
Yeah.
Later on, Lance actually tried to claim credit for inspiring Hitler,
Oh, really?
but Hitler completely ignored him.
So, sounds like Hitler was trying to distance himself from those early
It
influences.
seems that way, yeah.
But there were others who did have a lasting impact on his thinking. Right.
Absolutely, yeah. Our source names 3 figures that were instrumental in shaping Hitler's worldview: Gottfried Feder, Dietrich Eckart, and Alfred Rosenberg.
Okay, so let's unpack these guys. What were their big ideas, and how did they influence Hitler?
Well, Feder was an economist, and he kind of gave Hitler the framework for his anti-capitalist and anti-Semitic economic policies. Like, he really pushed this conspiracy theory that Jewish financiers were controlling the world's money.
The age-old scapegoat. Just blame it on the financiers.
Right. Classic.
And then there's Eckart, a playwright, and Howitt, who became Hitler's close mentor. He really instilled in Hitler a deep hatred of Jews and a fervent belief in German exceptionalism. He also, and this is key, introduced Hitler to a circle of occultists.
So Eckhart was like the gateway to the world of occultism for Hitler.
Yeah, in a way you could say that. And finally, we have Rosenberg, the Nazi Party's chief ideologue. His book, The Myth of the 20th Century, laid out many of the racial theories that became central to Nazi beliefs.
The myth of the 20th century sounds like he was trying to rewrite history before it even happened.
Right.
What kind of racial theories are we talking about here?
Well, Rosenberg's work really cemented this concept of the Aryan race as superior to all others.
Okay.
And he used that to justify their pursuit of racial purity. Right. And all of this is playing out against the rise of Ariosophy, which I'm guessing has something to do with Aryans and wisdom.
You got it. It basically blended theosophical ideas with racial ideologies.
Okay.
And it claimed that occult practices could unlock the hidden knowledge and power of this so-called Aryan race.
But here's the thing that always just blows my mind. The term Aryan itself was completely twisted from its original meaning.
Right.
It's not even a racial term, right?
No, you're totally right. Aryan originally referred to a linguistic group, people who spoke Indo-Iranian languages.
Right.
They were mostly located in places like India, Iran, Central Asia.
So the Nazis basically hijacked this linguistic term and turned it into a racial category.
Exactly. 19th century European scholars, particularly in Germany, they wanted to create this narrative of European superiority.
Right.
So they detached Aryan from its roots and linked it to Northern European and Germanic people. They basically invented this master race with blonde hair and blue eyes.
It's a prime example of how, manipulating history can have devastating consequences.
Absolutely.
And this whole fabricated master race concept, this just became the bedrock of Nazi ideology.
It did, yeah. It was the foundation for their belief in racial hierarchy, their justification for everything from discrimination to genocide.
Speaking of foundational influences, we have to talk about the Thule Society.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay, so what was the Thule Society all about, and how did they fit into this whole picture?
So, picture it. 1918, Germany. The Thule Society is formed. They're a secretive group, kind of like the Freemasons. They had their own rituals and their hierarchy, and they believed in this mystical knowledge that was only accessible to a select few.
And who were the select few, in their eyes?
Pure Aryans, of course.
Of course.
They were obsessed with racial purity, advocated for inbreeding to maintain it. They even believed in this mythical land called Thule, which they considered the origin of the Aryan race.
Hold on, a mythical land. Where did they think Thule was?
Some people thought it was Atlantis. Others thought it was like an underground realm.
Wow, so we're talking about a group that's combining racial ideology with straight-up mythology. It's crazy how these beliefs, which seem so out there, were gaining traction in Germany at the time.
Yeah, I think that's what's so fascinating and disturbing about this whole period.
Right.
The Thule Society's influence on the Nazi Party is undeniable. You have prominent Nazis like Rudolf Hess, Alfred Rosenberg, and remember Dietrich Eckart, Hitler's mentor?
Yeah.
They were all associated with the Thule Society.
The Thule Society was like a breeding ground for future Nazi leaders.
Yeah, two of their members, Anton Drexler and Karl Harrer, even founded the German Workers' Party, which later on Hitler joined and transformed it into the Nazi Party.
Oh, wow. So there's a very direct link there. It's like tracing the roots of a poisonous tree back to, its contaminated soil.
It really is.
Yeah. And when it comes to this whole intertwining of Nazi ideology and the occult, perhaps no one embodies that more than Heinrich Himmler.
Yeah, absolutely.
Himmler, the head of the SS. He was the guy who took this whole fascination with the occult to a whole new level, right?
He did. He was obsessed with ancient Germanic symbols and runes. He even believed in the resurrection of the old German gods. Saw the SS as this modern-day order of Teutonic Knights, spreading a racially pure ideology.
Okay, so he's trying to create this, warrior monk order based on this twisted vision of the past.
Right.
How did that play out, in reality?
Well, he very deliberately infused the SS with occult symbolism. The black uniforms, the death's head symbol, the runes, it was all meticulously designed to project authority and fear and a connection to this mythical past.
It's like he was trying to create a visually striking, almost theatrical representation of power.
Yeah, exactly. He really understood the power of symbols and aesthetics, but he wasn't just interested in the esoteric side of things. He wanted to use it to build this powerful and intimidating force.
And he went beyond symbolism, right? He created the ANRB, which was this Nazi research organization dedicated to, basically digging up evidence for Aryan supremacy.
Right. The Honor Bee was tasked with finding evidence to support Nazi racial theories and collecting ancient artifacts that Himmler believed held mystical power.
Wait, they were searching for mystical artifacts?
Oh,
what were they looking for?
Well, one thing they were after was Thor's hammer.
Thor's hammer?
Yeah.
Wow.
Himmler was convinced it was an ancient superweapon. They also acquired the Holy Lance.
Okay.
The spear believed to have pierced the side of Christ.
So they're raiding museums and historical sites, trying to assemble a collection of ancient relics.
In a way, yeah. They went to great lengths. They launched expeditions to Tibet, the Middle East, even Antarctica.
Antarctica. What were they doing down there?
Well, they were looking for evidence of a lost Aryan civilization, fueled by this idea that Antarctica might have been the mythical land of Thule.
Wow. So we're going from Tibetan monasteries to the frozen wastes of Antarctica. This is getting wild.
And they were also working with this guy named Herman Wirth, who believed that prehistoric Nordic civilizations held the key to Aryan wisdom.
Okay, so they're trying to rewrite history by digging up ancient civilizations, twisting their findings to fit their ideology.
Exactly, yeah.
Wow, it's a fascinating and disturbing example of how the Nazis twisted history, mythology, even science to serve their agenda.
Absolutely.
And their efforts to manipulate the past would have such a profound impact on, the horrific future that they were creating.
Yeah.
But even as Himmler's obsession with the occult grew, Hitler's attitude toward it started to shift.
It did, yeah.
So Hitler's backing away from the occult. What's going on there? Why would he do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's what we'll explore in the next part of our deep dive. We'll see how Hitler's shifting stance on the occult actually created this really interesting tension within the Nazi leadership and how it ultimately shaped the direction of the regime.
So last time we were talking about how Himmler was super into all this occult stuff.
Right.
But Hitler's attitude was like, is it going to change? What was going on there? It seems kind of weird that the leader of the Nazi party would back away from something that, was so influential in their early days.
It is a bit of a paradox.
Yeah.
On the one hand, you have Himmler, at head of the SS, obsessed with runes, artifacts, trying to recreate these ancient rituals.
Right.
And on the other, you have Hitler distancing himself from overt occultism.
So what was behind Hitler's change of heart? Was he just trying to make Nazism more, palatable to the masses?
Well, there are a few theories.
Okay.
Some historians believe that Hitler, always a pragmatist, saw overt occultism as a potential liability. He was trying to present Nazism as this political doctrine based on, science and reason.
Okay.
Obviously, perversion of science, but,
So less magic and mystery and more like cold, hard facts, even if those facts are totally made up.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
He needed to appeal to a broader audience to gain legitimacy on the world stage.
Right.
Openly embracing the occult, that would have made him look like a fringe figure.
Right.
not someone to be taken seriously.
So he was trying to rebrand Nazism as something more respectable, less like a cult, more like a legitimate political movement.
Exactly. He wanted to distance himself from those fringe elements that might have been appealing to him in his earlier years.
Right, right.
Remember, he banned Lanz's publications,
Oh, right.
publicly declared that National Socialism was not a mystic cult.
Yeah, that's a pretty clear statement.
Right.
But even if Hitler was trying to downplay the occult, Himmler was still all in, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he never really wavered in his beliefs. And this created this fascinating dynamic within the Nazi leadership.
Right.
Hitler might have been publicly distancing himself from occultism, but he never actually stopped Himmler's activities.
So he was turning a blind eye to Himmler's obsession.
It seems that way.
Why? Why would he allow that?
Well, it's possible that Hitler saw some value in what Himmler was doing. I mean, the SS under Himmler was a powerful force, responsible for carrying out some of the most horrific aspects of the Nazi agenda.
So even if Hitler didn't personally believe in all that occult stuff, he might have seen it as a useful tool for, controlling and motivating the SS.
Exactly. It was a way to ensure their loyalty, their ruthlessness.
It's a pretty cunning strategy.
It is.
It's a bit disturbing.
Definitely.
But wasn't there a point where Hitler finally cracked down on all of this?
Yeah.
Himmler's, occult shenanigans?
Yeah.
I feel like I remember something about, Rudolf Hess's flight to England.
Oh, yeah. Hess's ill-fated flight in 1941.
Okay.
That was a major turning point in Hitler's attitude toward the occult.
Okay, remind me what happened with Hess. I'm a little fuzzy on the details.
So Hess was Hitler's deputy, and he was vehemently opposed to the planned invasion of the Soviet Union.
Okay.
He believed that, England and Germany should be allies against Bolshevism.
Okay.
And so he decided to fly to Scotland to try and broker a peace deal.
That was a pretty bold move. What does this have to do with the occult?
Well, right before embarking on this mission, Hess consulted with his astrologer.
An astrologer. Wait, so a high-ranking Nazi official is making major political decisions based on astrology?
It seems absurd now, but at the time, astrology was taken quite seriously by some people.
Okay.
So yeah, Hess had his astrologer.
Okay. And did he listen to his astrologer?
He didn't. He went ahead with the flight, which ended in disaster. He was captured, ridiculed. The whole thing was a huge embarrassment for the Nazi regime.
And Hitler was furious.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely livid. He saw Hess's flight as a betrayal, and he blamed it on Hess's occult dabblings. Used it as an excuse to launch this crackdown on occultism within the Nazi party.
So Hess's flight was like the final straw for Hitler.
You could say that. After that, occultism was officially out of favor. He purged astrologers and occultists from the party, tightened his control over information and ideology.
Wow. What a dramatic shift.
It was.
So even though Himmler stayed, personally committed to the occult, its influence within the party was basically, over.
Pretty much, yeah. Hitler, always the master propagandist, understood the importance of controlling the narrative.
Right.
He was determined to present this unified and ideologically pure front to the world.
So in a way, the occult became a victim of its own success. The more powerful it seemed, the more dangerous it became to Hitler's control.
It's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah.
It was this double-edged sword for Hitler. It might have helped him consolidate power in the early days, but it also represented this potential threat to his authority.
Right.
A threat that he was ultimately unwilling to tolerate.
It's a good reminder that, even the most powerful dictators, they're often afraid of the ideas and beliefs they can't fully control.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay, so we've seen how Hitler's attitude toward the occult evolved over time, from early fascination to, eventual suppression.
Right.
But what about Himmler?
Yeah.
Did his beliefs ever waver?
That's a great question, and one that we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive. We'll delve into Himmler's continuing obsession with the occult, his attempts to weaponize it for the Nazi war effort, and the enduring legacy of this dark chapter in history.
So we've seen how Hitler's, view of the occult changed over time.
Right.
But what about Himmler? Did he ever, back down from his beliefs?
Not at all. If anything, as the war went on, his obsession with the occult seemed to intensify.
I mean, it's kind of mind-blowing.
It is.
That the head of the SS, the guy responsible for some of the most horrific acts, in human history.
Right.
He was so into this world of ancient myths and mystical powers.
It's a reminder that even in the midst of, unimaginable cruelty, people can still cling to these seemingly irrational beliefs.
So how did Himmler's occult beliefs, like how did they actually play out during the war? Did he try to use them to influence the outcome?
There's evidence to suggest that he did.
Oh, really?
Remember the Honor Bee?
Yeah.
That research organization he created?
Right.
Well, during the war, its activities took on a more, let's say, practical dimension.
So they weren't just, digging up artifacts anymore.
Well, they were still doing that, but they were also exploring ways to actually weaponize the occult.
Weaponize the occult?
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
For the Nazi war effort.
Were they trying to, summon demons to fight on the front lines?
Not quite.
Okay.
But their efforts were, well, just as bizarre.
Okay.
For instance, there's this story of Operation Oak, the mission to rescue Mussolini.
Right.
After he was captured by Italian partisans.
Okay.
Some historians think that Himmler might have used occultists and remote viewers to try and find him.
Hold on, remote viewers, people who can see things happening far away.
Yeah, using, psychic powers.
Did it work? Did they actually find Mussolini using, remote viewing?
There's no definitive proof that they did. But the fact that Himmler even considered using those methods just shows you, his mindset.
Yeah. Yeah, it shows you how much faith he put in these, pretty fringe ideas. Was this just a one-off thing, or did he try to use those kind of tactics in other ways?
Oh, there were other instances. Himmler was really into dowsing.
Dowsing?
Yeah.
Wow.
Using a pendulum or rods to locate things.
You mean those people you see walking around with forked sticks trying to find water?
Yeah, exactly.
That's dowsing.
Yeah, that's dowsing.
Okay.
And Himmler believed that the British were using it to locate German U-boats.
Okay.
So he set up this special unit called the Pendulum Institute.
The Pendulum Institute.
Staffed with dowsers, astrologers, clairvoyants. Their mission was to use these techniques to find British ships.
Okay.
Even try to, disrupt enemy operations.
So, a whole department within the SS dedicated to using, magic to win the war.
Basically, yeah.
It's incredible. Did it work?
Well, the accounts of the Pendulum Institute's effectiveness are pretty mixed. Some Nazis claim they had, major successes.
Right.
Others dismissed their efforts as totally useless.
Right. It's hard to know what to believe.
Yeah.
It's all shrouded in secrecy and misinformation.
Right.
But even if they didn't achieve any, tangible results, the fact that they put so much effort into this stuff, it's pretty telling.
Yeah. It really underscores how convinced Himmler was that the occult could be, a real asset to the Nazi war machine.
Right. Like a secret weapon.
Yeah.
And you mentioned before that Himmler was also interested in those ancient rituals. Did he ever try to actually bring those back?
He did. He was fascinated by the, ancient Germanic pagans, saw them as the true spiritual ancestors of the Aryan race.
Mm-hmm.
He held these gatherings at Wilsberg Castle, which he had renovated, included a grail room and other spaces designed to kind of evoke this sense of ancient, mystical power.
So he's trying to create a Nazi Camelot.
Exactly.
A mythical stronghold for the, master race.
Yeah, he even attempted to revive some of these pagan rituals within the SS, saw them as a way to forge this deeper connection to, the supposed spiritual power of their ancestors.
So it's he's trying to create this, new religion for the Nazi regime.
In a way, he was.
Yeah.
One based on this, really distorted version of the past.
And this wasn't just some, personal quirk of Himmler's.
Right.
These beliefs had real-world consequences.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
His obsession with racial purity and the occult, they played a direct role in the atrocities committed by the SS.
Yeah.
They saw themselves as this vanguard of a new world order, justified in their actions by their ideology.
Right.
Which was rooted in, occultism and racial mysticism.
It's a chilling reminder that even the most, seemingly bizarre beliefs can have this huge impact on the world, especially when you combine it with power and fanaticism.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, what are some of the key takeaways from this whole, Nazis and the occult thing?
Well, I think one of the biggest takeaways is that, the allure of the occult, the promise of hidden knowledge and power, it can be really seductive, especially in times of uncertainty and crisis.
Right. It's people are searching for answers, looking for something to believe in. Sometimes they're waiting to, grasp at anything, even the most irrational ideas.
Exactly. And those who seek power can really exploit that vulnerability.
Yeah.
Right? They use the allure of the occult to manipulate and control.
And we see that throughout history, not just with the Nazis, but with tons of other groups and individuals who have used the occult to, justify their actions
Right.
to gain influence.
Right, exactly. It's a reminder that we always need to be critical of those who claim to have, secret knowledge,
Yeah.
or who promise these easy solutions to complex problems.
Right.
And we have to be especially careful about people who use the occult to promote, hatred and discrimination and violence.
Yeah.
Ultimately, this whole story of the Nazis and the occult, it's a cautionary tale.
Hmm.
It shows us how easily the human desire for meaning and purpose can be twisted and distorted, and it can lead to, really disastrous consequences.
Right. It's a reminder that we always have to be vigilant, defending reason, tolerance, compassion against those forces of darkness.
Exactly. We can't forget the lessons of history.
Right.
Otherwise, we're doomed to repeat them.
Well said. Thanks for taking us on this deep dive. This was pretty fascinating
Yeah, it's been my pleasure.
and a little unsettling.
It's a dark chapter.
It is.
Remember, stay curious out there,
Yeah.
but be critical.